Environmental due diligence protects potential buyers, sellers, and lenders involved in a commercial property transaction from environmental contamination issues. Here are some of the basics of environmental assessments. There are different levels of environmental due diligence that can be performed for commercial property. Each level provides more details in the investigation, which provides a clearer picture of the environmental status of the property. There are very low levels of investigations which are used when you are absolutely sure about the history of the property, the surrounding properties, and when the dollar investment is low. The most requested are transaction screen assessments for low-risk properties and Phase 1 environmental site assessments for medium to high-risk properties or large loan amounts. Phase 2 soil testing is a subject we will get into later in this presentation. TSA and Phase 1 reports are the most requested environmental due diligence. Often people don't understand the difference between the reports. TSA reports do not provide any type of environmental liability protection. They are used for low-risk properties where the history of the site is known. This is typically the lowest form of due diligence accepted by commercial lenders. If an environmental issue is found in the future, the owner could still be liable to clean up the contamination. Because of the additional research that is completed in a Phase 1, it is the only form of due diligence that provides an owner the liability protection if an environmental issue is found in the future. Let's review why they are different. You can see more time, data review, and research goes into a Phase 1 report in order to review the history of the property and locate environmental issues. Let's take a look at some of the research found in environmental reports. City directories gather information from historical phone books to tell us what businesses were registered at the subject and surrounding properties during previous years. You can see 49er Cleaners is listed at this particular property as far back as 1993. Unless recent soil testing has been completed, it's likely we would recommend additional investigation and a Phase 2 soil test be completed to rule out the possibility of contamination associated with the dry cleaner. Fire insurance maps can often be found dating back to 1867. They show structures on the property and the type of industry that operated at the property. This example shows us that a dry cleaner in the red box on the left and a gas station labeled as gas and oil in the red box on the right. Depending on where your subject property is located, the topography of the land, how long each of those businesses were at the property, and a few other pieces of information, this may or may not be a concern for our property. Historical aerial photos are a great resource for determining the site history. Oftentimes, clients tell us the property was vacant before the current structure was built. This example shows the photo on the left has a structure on the property within the blue box. The photo on the right is the same property 20 years later, showing vacant land with no trace of the previous building. Database radius maps help us to see the subject property, which is indicated by a green star, and surrounding properties with potential issues indicated by red dots. This helps us understand if nearby properties can affect the subject property. After the data above has been reviewed, along with interviewing a person familiar with the property, we can determine our Phase 1 conclusions and recommendations. We can choose from the following. In most cases, if no further action is recommended, we believe that no contamination exists at the property. No further actions may also include qualifiers such as HREC, Historical Recognized Environmental Conditions, are defined by the ASTM 1527-13 as an environmental condition which in the past would have been considered a recognized environmental condition, but which may or may not be considered a REC currently. CREC, Controlled environmental conditions is when a known wreck exists but is being controlled and dealt with by a responsible party. De minimis environmental conditions are concerns that are identified that warrant discussion but do not qualify as a wreck per the ASTM 1527 guidelines. These recommendations are not always clear-cut and can get complicated. We have a great team who can walk you through these recommendations and how they will affect you. The other recommendation is called a recognized environmental condition and indicates there is potential contamination on the property. In these cases, we have to recommend that further action be taken. This could include additional research that is beyond the normal scope of work for a Phase 1, or that a Phase 2 soil assessment be completed. A Phase 2 soil assessment investigation is where we drill into the soil, take samples, and test for contamination. For most small properties, the cost of a Phase 2 can range from $8,000 to $12,000 depending on the scope of work and takes about 2 weeks. Phase 2s determine if contamination is present and exceeds reportable or actionable levels. If contamination is found, additional investigation may be needed to determine size and amount of contamination. This helps to determine the cost and duration of remediation. This is what a typical Phase 2 drilling looks like. The drill is typically about the size of a moving van. There are certain types of properties or cases where a Phase 2 is often needed. These may include properties with a history of automotive repair, gas stations, manufacturing, industrial operations, or dry cleaners. There are many reasons why a Phase 2 can be recommended. These lists are by no means an exhaustive one. We will work with you to find the best pricing, options, and solutions. If you still have questions, please contact us to see how we can help answer or explain more about environmental reports.